Hello and welcome to Dharma. I'm your host, Kylie. In this podcast series, It's Not You, Is Verified, and I have referenced the author when quoted throughout the series. The stories that I share with you during the cast are not sharing any identifiable or confidential information. I am sharing my experience throughout the series, and you will listen to episodes that may make you reflect, and at times you are going to alter your emotional perspective that you have. That's the process of healing. Keep the faith and do not defend yourself against your decision. Don't ever go backwards. Today, we're going to discuss the chapter that identifies rebellion in red shoes. Oftentimes, the person that is healing from narcissistic relationships, such as the relationship that Luna shared with her father, that Dr. Ramani referenced during the book, is difficult. However, stemming a relationship as a way to achieve a particular outcome that is proving favorable to the narcissistic person is not what the author is saying. What the author is saying is validating any experience when navigating these perplexed connections is challenging. It is important to realize that there is no way of winning or losing in these nuclear relationships. There is an exponentially rising population of victims projecting or perceiving their ideal life without any consequences for choosing to engage in these toxic relationships. No, it is not their fault most times. However, it is important that they spend time uncomfortably and sacrificially to decipher, is it them who is needing another form of therapy or institutionalized trauma camp, or is it something else? It is really, really hard to determine sometimes. Most people with the narcissistic term use it as a crutch to latch on to some different hierarchy of need, and it is really adversely effective to those who are unaware of the situation. And I talk about this in an earlier series of mine. To codependently latch onto a different need from an environment that doesn't support rational thinking could cause a person to get into a destructive environment and cycle that is very hard to break out of. There is a such thing as a narcissistic supply. The remorse and guilt from the other party or client that may experience the effects of narcissistic supply may adversely affect them. As a professional, I am able to make clear assessment of the client without the narcissistic individual or individuals present. As a practitioner that is healing on her own journey, I have a disclosure that tells clients prior to enrolling in services that I have non negotiables in using anything that I say in terms of strategies, recommendations, or techniques in session that I give them during worker treatment may not get utilized in any way at family court proceedings, trial hearings, or any form of litigation. I don't ever allow them to ask why. I tell them the reasons up front with the research and findings that have been found. When you are in a relationship or any connection with a narcissistic person, there are other complexities that the client may not have the necessary tools to navigate. And that is a liability to the survivor and others who may indirectly, unknowingly get dragged into a dangerous outcome. These relationships aren't well, everyone else is doing it. And if I keep telling myself it is only a narcissistic issue, everything will go away. It is scary to see how many adults take this one size solution, and that is not how it works. You do not want a following like you would on media. You must take precautions when navigating these relationships that exist pretty much everywhere in today's society. In my office or any setting, they are aware of the legalities if they receive services or therapy from me. They are not allowed to speak with any other support group, friend, or family member for up to 2 years because in this work, if the client is ready to make a change, it is definitive. Identifying and healing from narcissistic people is something that cannot get coached. Many of these clients begin to lean in when they have a realization that there is no other side of justice. In the stage of contemplation, going back and forth between whatever you want to hear, feel, or see in your senses at the moment, there are only a few options. You can either live a life, lie, lead, and ultimately the goal is to end up leaving these relationships. Someone gets hurt no matter what. And since the client may return to the relationship, I have a disclosure in writing that if there is a death, involvement in other things such as financial loss, domestic abuse, whatever, I'm able to get a clear assessment before we get too far into work. Scientists have noted that finding ways to separate from a place of rebellion in narcissistic relationships or people with personality deficiencies, you have to have the essentials to take notice of behaviors such as a person changing their hobbies, their hair, weight, height, gender traits, groups of friends, or even style. Oftentimes, they will also start exhibiting extreme jealousy, spending too much time on social media to gain attention, require unrealistic parameters around the amount of time that you spend together. All in all, the narcissistic person's patterns become really extreme, relatively speaking, from not being seen or validated in perception. This destructively counteracts anatomy and autonomy. It's time to consider who you are no longer with this person and to start to see yourself and envision yourself without them in your life. It's going to be difficult. You're going to have to set so many boundaries. And I don't mean to sound really, really, tough by any means. However, it is tough. As a professional, I have to have toughness. I have to present all the facts up front. So if there is an individual who bounces around to feel a certain way, I tell them, you might as well stay because you're not ready yet. I don't appreciate taking valuable time of mine or time away from my other clients who are serious about getting out of their narcissistic relationships. It is time to identify the root causes of problematic challenges in these narcissistic relationships in order to reclaim your life. I want you to think about that. There are no do-overs in life, only lessons learned. I thank you for listening to Dharma. And if you like the podcast, I would like for you to hit like or subscribe. And until next time, adios.